Good morning, grade 12. This is the last lesson for this chapter. What we're going to look at today is just examples of how this content will be asked in an exam. Our first example is Duka Mines. Duka Mines specializes in the extraction of platinum. Their suppliers of mining equipment have increased their prices by more than 20%. The supervisor does not have a good working relationship with his employees, and DM can no longer export their products due to an increase in the exchange rate. So you first of all have to identify the business sector in which Duka Mines operates, and you have to motivate your answer by quoting from the scenario. Okay, mining is obviously part of the primary sector. All right, the quote, what is our motivation? And remember, when we are quoting from the scenario, you have to quote word for word, otherwise you will not get the marks. Your motivation will be Duka Mines specializes in the extraction of platinum. Remember, any extraction of natural resources is classified as the primary sector. Your second question is that you have to quote challenges from the above scenario, classify each challenge according to the business environment, and then state the extent of control that DM has over each business environment. Okay, there's 3 challenges in this extract. The first one says their suppliers of mining equipment have increased their prices by more than 20%. It's a challenge. It is something that we now have to deal with. If our suppliers are increasing their prices, okay, which business environment is our suppliers a part of? It is part of the market environment. And remember, in the market environment, we have limited control. All right, for example, we can find another supplier. Okay, but we have limited control. We cannot force this one supplier to do what we want them to do. The second challenge is that the supervisor does not have a good working relationship with his employees. Obviously, this is something that happens inside of our business environment. So the environment will be the micro environment. The extent of control that we have, remember, inside the business itself, we have full control. All right, we can send the supervisor on a course, we can move him to a different department. There's things that we can do to deal with this challenge. The last challenge from the scenario is that DM can no longer export their products due to an increase in the exchange rate. All right, so if there's an increase in the exchange rate, the rand appreciates, it means that South African products are becoming more expensive for other countries to buy. All right, and that's why we can no longer export, because nobody else wants to buy our products because it is now too expensive. The challenge here is in terms of the exchange rate. So what business environment does the exchange rate changes fall in? That would be our macro environment. And the extent of control, how much control do we have over the exchange rate? We have none, no control whatsoever. Not even the government, not even the Reserve Bank has control over the exchange rate. We have no control. The next example we are going to look at is the Super Energy Enterprise, or SEE. Super Energy Enterprise produces maize meal and instant soft porridge. They buy their raw materials from Early Bird Maize Farm, which is out of stock sometimes. SEE employees are regularly absent from work. The local government has instructed the management of SEE to register their products with the South African Bureau for Standards. So the first question again is going to say identify the business sector in which SEE operates and motivate your answer by quoting from the scenario. Now, in the scenario, we can see they say they obtain their raw material from a farm and then they process those raw materials into the soft porridge and the whatever. So the business sector, because they are involved in production and processing, the business sector will be the secondary sector. Our motivation, remember quoting straight from the scenario. Super Energy Enterprise produces maize meal and instant soft porridge. Your keyword there is producers. They use raw materials and they produce something else. They process it into a useful product. The next question will say, quote challenges from the scenario, classify each challenge according to the business environment, and again state the extent of control that SEE has over each business environment. Their first challenge, quoting from the scenario, they buy their raw material from Early Bird Maize Farm, which is out of stock sometimes. There's your problem, When they want to buy the raw materials, sometimes it is out of stock. If they can't find raw materials, they can't produce and sell their product. Right, again, they talk about here, they buy their raw materials from Early Bird. Okay, so it is a supplier. So the environment will be the market environment. Your suppliers are part of the market environment. The extent of control in the market environment, remember we have limited control. The next challenge from the scenario, remember to quote word for word. SEE employees are regularly absent from work. In terms of the business environment, obviously our employees are part of our internal environment. It is the problem within the business itself. So the environment will be the micro environment. And remember, within the business itself, we have full control. Obviously, we can take disciplinary action against these employees that are absent without a valid reason. The last challenge from the scenario, and again quoting word for word, is the local government has instructed the manager of SEE to register their products with the SABS. You have to write it out because in the scenario it was written out, South African Bureau of Standards. The business environment here, the local government has instructed us. Obviously, there is legal implications here. It is an instruction from the government, which means it is part of our macro environment over which we have absolutely no control. All right, if the government instructs a law, they make a law, they pass a law, they give us an instruction, we have to obey. It is the law. There's nothing that we can do about that. We have no control. The third example is Timothy Legal Services, or TLS. TLS is situated at the Pretoria CBD. TLS's assistant lawyers are not trained to handle criminal cases. Another law firm, Mbuzi Incorporated, has set up a law practice in the same office block as TLS. TLS can no longer pay their bank loan due to an increase in interest rates. So the first question, identify the business sector in which TLS operates and motivate your answer by quoting from the scenario. All right, so TLS, Timothy Legal Services. You must know the theory. Legal services, it's a service that is being provided. Services forms part of the tertiary sector. And when you're quoting, remember word for word. Timothy Legal Services is situated in the Pretoria CBD. The important part of this quote is not the fact that they are situated in the Pretoria CBD. That's neither here nor there. It says nothing. But the fact that they provide legal services. That is what makes it a tertiary sector activity. The second question, again, quote challenges from the scenario. Classify each challenge according to the business environment and state the extent of control that TLS has over each business environment. First challenge from the scenario is that their assistant lawyers are not trained to handle criminal cases. Okay, again, so in other words, they have hired assistant lawyers that are not properly trained to actually do their job. This is an inside problem. This is a problem that exists within the business itself. So the business environment will be the micro environment. It is now obviously the solution to this is that we must provide training. Now we must make sure that our assistant lawyers get the training that they need so that they are able to handle criminal cases and do their jobs. The extent of control in the micro environment is full control. Now, as I said, we can provide training. We can send them for training to deal with this challenge. The second challenge from the scenario is another law firm, Mbuzi Inc. has set up a law practice in the same office block as TLS. Obviously, this is now a competitor. Now, we now have competition. We're no longer the only one. We now have competition. And that is going to be part of our market environment. Competition is part of the market environment. Our extent of control is limited. All right, we cannot chase Mbuzi Incorporated away. They've got a full right to also open an office there, but obviously we can do things we need to advertise or we need to do whatever to convince people to come to us rather than Mbuzi. All right, but we have limited control. The last challenge from the scenario is that TLS can no longer pay their bank loan due to an increase in interest rates. Right. Interest rates is part of the macro environment. All right. And remember our extent of control, we have no control over the interest rates. If the Reserve Bank puts up the interest rates, our bank is going to put up the interest rates. It is a fact. There's nothing that we can do about that. We have no control over this. We just have to decide what we're going to do to deal with it. But we cannot change the interest rate to something that suits us better. Right, just a last kind of question that they can ask you, okay, if it's not based on a scenario, they can also ask you to name the 3 business environments and to explain the extent of control that the business will have over each business environment. We have done them all. Obviously, in the micro environment, the business itself, the environment within the business itself, we have full control. The market environment is the environment immediately outside of the business. There we have limited control. And the macro environment is where we have no control whatsoever.